Starting your day off with a take on Vegas you won't get anywhere else.
Hi, I'm Holly Madison.
Hi, this is William Shatner.
It is Larry the Cable Guy, and I listen. Why? Because I'm a good American. So is he. And if you don't listen to him, you need to pack up and leave this country.
This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
Come on, guys!
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro on a Tuesday. Glad you could join us. Our second day in the new time slot, 9 a.m. to noon. Oh, yeah, we're having a lot of fun. We're getting used to it. We're all right. I got some sleep last night. Everything's good. By the way, if you're thinking of taking a flight to Hong Kong today, you might want to cancel that trip as soon as possible. If you put on the news or the Vegas Take, as we're informing you on this show. That's what we do. There are riots. Police are clashing with protesters. I shouldn't laugh about it because it's a serious situation, but the airport is completely closed, and Donald Trump actually just made some comments about it. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the broadcast. I'm happy just staying here in Las Vegas. I'm not going to Hong Kong anytime soon. In fact, I don't know if I'm going to any of those. No, actually, I do want to go to North Korea. I want to hang out with Kim Jong-un. He seems like a great guy to have a beer with, according to Donald Trump. He's a good guy.
And you could probably go to a yoga pants store and maybe steal some clothes with Dennis Rodman.
I saw Dennis Rodman the other day, by the way, quickly. I went to a concert up in San Diego, a couple of 90s alternative rock bands live, Bush, Our Lady Peace. Dennis Rodman is a huge fan of the band live. I saw him there. I was about 10 feet away from him. It was he was drinking heavily. Not a shock. But anyway, a lot to get to today on the show. As you know, in Hollywood, many people in Hollywood as, on the left, lefties, Democrats, snowflakes, whatever you want to call it. Well, we have a guy coming up on the show, a longtime movie producer in Hollywood who is a conservative. We're going to call him the Hollywood conservative, or Mr. X. Now, we can't say his name. He requests us not to because he's in fear he could lose his job. But he's going to speak out on the hypocrisy that he says in Hollywood and the bias in politics. So he'll be coming up in hour number 2. Boy, do we have a lot of stories to get to today. We're even going to give you a story on the 5 worst things you could do at a buffet in Las Vegas. We'll get to that coming up a little bit later in the program as well. But I want to start with this. To a shock to many, I'm not going after Donald Trump to start the show today. No. Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, who is running for president of the United States, got my blood boiling in the last few days. Now, listen, I've never been a fan of hers. Her Indian descent of 0.00000 times 10, 0.0001%. Is that a percentage, by the way, times 10? I don't think that is. But anyway,
I think carry the 2, it ends up getting somewhere. By the way, it's really, really hard to boil your blood and grind your gears.
This pisses me off.
I mean, you don't get mad very often at all. You're a pretty even keel guy, and I really appreciate that about you.
I am. Thank you. I'm very even keel. I'm very calm. Unless you're talking about 99% of my life. I'm not, but I appreciate that. You must have been talking about the 1%. Or maybe the 0.00001% of the Indian descent of Elizabeth Warren. Maybe that's what you were talking about. But I bring this up because it's important. I support police. Are there some bad cops out there? Absolutely. The majority of police officers are good cops. And we talk about these shootings all the time where, a Caucasian a white police officer is killing an African-American. And all of a sudden, you'll hear Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson flip out and go nuts and automatically assume and convict the officer without hearing all the evidence. I absolutely hate that. I hate it. And look, there are some situations out there where I do believe police officers, I don't want to use the term murder, but in some cases, maybe it is. And they have to be prosecuted to the highest extent of the law. There's no question. Well, is there racism in society? Absolutely.
Of course there is, but people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, they monetize perceived oppression.
Sure. I don't disagree with that. I'm not a big fan of either of them. Here's what Elizabeth Warren, I go back to Elizabeth Warren. Here's what she tweeted out. Keep in mind, she is running for president of the United States. She tweets out a few days ago, 5 years ago, Michael Brown was murdered by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. Michael was unarmed, yet he was shot 6 times. I stand with activists and organizers who continue to fight for justice for Michael. We must confront systemic racism and police violence head on. First of all, there are so many things wrong with this statement, it's unreal. First of all, Michael Brown, the evidence showed that he attacked that police officer in Ferguson. If you don't know who Michael Brown is, he's the man who was shot and killed in Ferguson that raised all questions about police violence, and Barack Obama flew out people in his administration to his funeral. The evidence clearly supported that Michael Brown had just committed a strong-arm robbery. He's walking out. He attacks a police officer who told him to get out of the street. He goes after the officer's gun. DNA, folks, that's what we have in society, DNA. And there were African Americans that were witnesses that testified that Michael Brown darted towards the officer, and that's when the officer shot him. So to Elizabeth Warren, who I think is a nitwit, who makes statements like this to try to get votes, completely disingenuous person. I find her very similar to Hillary Clinton in a lot of ways, and this is no exception. Michael Brown was not murdered. If somebody goes in to Elizabeth Warren's house and invades her house and tries to attack her and darts at her, whether that person has a weapon or not, if you have a gun, you're allowed to defend yourself. That's exactly what this officer did. And by the way, his life is destroyed. You think this guy's ever going to be a police officer again? Absolutely not. What is she talking about? Michael Brown was not murdered. Michael Brown was a felon. He attacked a police officer, and as far as I'm concerned, he got what was coming to him. If you're dumb enough to go after a police officer or go after a police officer's gun, or in this case, assault a police officer, do you even deserve to be alive? I would argue probably not, and I don't feel sorry for Michael Brown at all. Do I feel sorry for his friends and family? Absolutely. There's no winners here. I also feel very sorry for that police officer that he had to go through this. It is a joke. And Elizabeth Warren, you want to see, I always talk about Donald Trump and hateful rhetoric because he does it every day. But Elizabeth Warren also needs to be called out for the same thing. This is hateful rhetoric. This is not helping the country. Are there police officers out there that have committed crimes and atrocities? Are there police officers out there that treat African Americans different than people like you and me, perhaps? Yes, no question. There's no question. But Michael Brown was not murdered. What is Elizabeth Warren talking about? This is a story that should be covered. This is a story that, again, MSNBC, CNN, they should cover this story because Elizabeth Warren is wrong. 100% wrong in this case. There's no maybes about it. This isn't a chokehold in New York. Okay, that was a completely different situation.
Yeah, the Eric Garner situation was a whole different universe compared to the Michael Brown situation.
Yeah, completely different.
And Elizabeth Warren is clearly pandering here.
This is wrong. You're calling this police officer a murderer. What did this guy do but his job? Now, what do you guys think about this? Because I do want to open up the phone lines on this one, and we will get to the GCI guys' phone line here in just a second. And I'll open up the phone lines at 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the program, 702-257-5396. I am disgusted by Elizabeth Warren. I really am. We live in a day and age in society now where it's about lying, not telling the truth to try to get votes. That's exactly what Elizabeth Warren did the other day.
Well, I mean, she's been pandering with pretending to be 0.0001% Native American.
It's less than that, actually. You got to add about 20 more zeros.
Okay, yeah. That's completely insane. But she was leveraging that to get votes and to get sympathy, if you will. Now she's doing it here, and then she has openly referred to Donald Trump as a fascist.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm not gonna get into that. I'm not going to say Donald Trump is a fascist, but the point I'm trying to make is we all have to be consistent on both sides. I go after Donald Trump on a regular basis if he says things that I think are dividing the country. His rhetoric, I think, is dangerous. Talk about that all the time. This is also very dangerous on the left. You shouldn't be, just like I say Donald Trump shouldn't demonize the majority of illegals, I feel like Elizabeth Warren is demonizing the police force. And every police officer should be offended by this. This man in Ferguson did nothing wrong. He did his job. The evidence proved that. There were African Americans that were there that saw it, that testified that he did his job. Give me a break, Elizabeth Warren. You should be ashamed of yourself and your 0.00 times 30 Indian descent, which is a farce. We have to be consistent on both sides. We have to criticize politicians, whether they have an R or a D next to their name. Folks, this is wrong. This is division. I talk about it with the president all the time, and I'm talking about it this morning with Elizabeth Warren. This was not a murder. Justice for Michael. Michael Brown got what he deserved, as far as I'm concerned. I'll say it one more time. Michael Brown got justice. He was shot by a police officer and killed because he tried to assault that police officer and grab his weapon. How dumb are you? How low of an IQ do you have? If you tried to assault a police officer, you deserve what's coming to. We'll get to the phone lines now, the GCI phone lines at 257-5396. Again, 702-257-5396 if you want to be a part of the program. Let's go to Brian. Brian, what's going on?
Hey, good morning, guys.
Morning, Brian.
What's up, Brian?
Congratulations on the new time slot. I wish
thank you.
all the best, gentlemen.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Brian. Thank you.
And I couldn't agree more about the tweet. But let's not just limit this to Senator Warren. Kamala Harris said basically the same thing in a tweet. Beto O'Rourke said the same thing in a tweet. And this is what Bernie Sanders said. Michael Brown should be alive today. 5 years after his death, we must finally end violence against police violence against people of color. And it goes on and on down almost the whole list
Well, that's
of
idiotic.
Democratic presidential candidates.
See, here's my big issue with this.
Honestly, I think it is kind of demeaning.
Well, I mean, very similar to the things that Trump does. You have to call out Democrats for doing the exact same thing. Look, let's be honest here. This is.
I mean, how stupid do they think that African Americans in the United States are?
Well, just Americans. I mean, I'm certainly not falling for
but they're clearly directing this towards African Americans.
Well, let's call it for what it is. It's completely idiotic. Bernie Sanders clearly, we talk about they talk about the justice system all the time and getting justice. Guess what? This went through the justice system. Doesn't mean they're always going to be right, but in this case, when you have African Americans as witnesses that say that this officer in Ferguson did nothing but his job, and that this guy Michael Brown was darting at him, how can Bernie Sanders get up there? How can Elizabeth Warren tweet stuff like this out? This is beyond idiotic, and it makes the Democrats look foolish. And I'll say one other thing, Brian. There are instances out there where police officers do horrible things, and this diminishes that from trying to go after the real officers that are doing bad things.
Couldn't agree more. And the worst tweet for me was Kirsten Gillibrand. Here's her quote. 5 years ago, a Ferguson police officer killed Michael Brown, an unarmed teenager. He shot him 6 times. Nothing will bring Michael back, but we can't stop fighting the injustice done to his family and so many others.
Idiotic.
Idiotic. And Tim Ryan actually posted a picture of a T-shirt, and when he said basically the same thing, and said, "Is my son next?" This is just hideous what these people are doing.
And the idea, listen, I don't want to get this crap from people saying, well, you're not an African American. Listen, I understand that there are injustices out there, and there are times where police absolutely are treating minorities differently. Make no mistake about it. But with that being said, this idea that white cops are just waking up in the morning and say, I want to kill an innocent African American is ludicrous. If you look at the stats, they don't support that conclusion. But if you listen to some of these activists, they will make you believe, and they will lead you to believe, that these police officers are just trying to kill minorities every day. That's not the case. It's ridiculous. Maybe you might hear some of that rhetoric at a Donald Trump rally, but it's not happening by police officers. Brian, we appreciate the call. Thank you very much. Again, that number, 257-5396, 702-257-5396. Let's go to Ron. Ron, what's going on?
Good morning, gentlemen. I appreciate you taking my call.
Sure.
Absolutely, Ron.
Brian, you guys, I agree with you 1,000%.
1,000? That's a lot.
I saw the original video when they were in the convenience store.
Exactly.
And they robbed the store and stole cigars. Now, when he left the store, there was an Asian man in the store.
Yeah, I remember.
Tried to stop him, and he pushed the man aside.
Yeah, no, listen, I remember that. And I think, there are a lot of people, even people on the left, that were saying, listen, that has nothing to do with the shooting, but I think it does because it has something to do with
it up to it.
It has right. It had something to do with his. It has something to do with his frame of mind. But
Michael Brown was about 6'4", 315 pounds.
Exactly. The Asian guy.
He was a towering guy.
Okay, but all that aside, Ron, and I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with you, but all that aside, I'm looking at the evidence of what transpired between Michael Brown and the officer, and the evidence.
Okay, well, that's what I'm working up to the point.
Yeah.
You see, Michael Brown had a buddy with him.
Yes.
Now, if Michael Brown stole them cigars, they were walking up. He left the store with Michael Brown, so he's an accessory to thievery. They were walking up the middle of the street, smoking those cigars. when a police officer was called because of the robbery and happened to see them walking down the middle of the street.
Okay, I agree.
That's why he stopped to talk to them.
Okay, I agree with everything you. Hold on. Hang on, Ron. Hang on for a second. I agree with everything you said except to that point.
It's the truth.
Right, but the police officer was not looking at those two men as suspects in the armed robbery, the strong-arm robbery.
He stopped them because they were walking down the street.
Correct, yes.
But the report was put in, and he just wanted to know what they were doing.
Ron, I understand what you're saying, but I think you're overthinking it. I'm trying to make it as simple.
No, it's what I saw, buddy.
Ron,
it's what I saw on TV.
Listen to me for a second, Ron.
And this buddy lied, and this buddy should be put in jail.
Ron, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not trying to get in an argument with you. Just listen to me for a second. Regardless of all that stuff you said, I'm just looking at the evidence. Okay,
I'm telling you the truth.
I didn't say you weren't, Ron. Ron, I didn't.
The evidence is the truth.
Ron, I feel like you're trying to. Ron, I feel like you're trying to.
Where's your mind at? Are you on the moon?
Ron, I feel.
If you saw the video.
Actually, yes, Ron. We're both on the moon.
I saw. Okay, let me be very clear again, because obviously you didn't listen to me the first time.
Oh, I heard what you said.
What did I say?
You're not hearing what I said.
What did I say?
Ron, you're in a great mood today.
Because they were walking down the middle of the street.
I just said I don't disagree.
They were doing in the middle of the street.
Okay, let me know when I can talk. Let me know when it's okay for the host to talk. Thank you.
Please, I want to have
Hey, Ron, that was a very solid tirade.
I want the truth.
Okay, let me know when I can speak. Let me know. Let me know when the host of a radio show can speak for 10 seconds without you interrupting.
All you want, brother. You just your show.
Okay, I'm trying to talk.
Tell the truth.
Are you done? Okay,
tell the truth. Yes, tell the truth.
I stated that I don't disagree with anything you just said. The only reason why I said I look at what happened between that officer and Michael Brown, because that's what's really important here.
That was all started by his buddy.
Are you going to let me finish?
His buddy lied like a muck. His buddy should be in jail for being accessory to robbery and for lying and setting that whole thing up.
Ron, I want to keep you on because I think you're a little crazy.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you're a little Looney Tunes.
I'm 73 years old, buddy. I'm going on 74 years old.
Ron.
And I have every ounce of brain in my brain.
So why won't
You're the problem.
Why am I the problem? What have I said?
Because you're an idiot.
What did I say?
You're my age, and you're trying to tell me how to think when I know the truth.
What are you talking about? We agree. Hold on. We agree.
Ron, I have to.
Anybody that caller before you was a great man.
Ron, I agree.
You listen to him.
Ron, have I defended? Ron, have I?
Give me a chance to talk.
I've given you the whole segment.
Talk common sense and talk the truth. Stop lying.
What did I lie about?
Ron,
what did I lie about?
Ron, I have a question.
You're everything around, man.
What are you talking about?
Ron, I have a question for you.
A guy like you,
you're not going to be able to get in a question. You're not going to be able to.
You're a backslider.
Okay,
you're a backslider is what you are.
Thank you, Ron.
You're a bald-faced liar.
Okay, what did I lie about in this conversation? Name one thing I lied about.
Everything that you try to.
Okay, be specific. Be specific. You nut job. Be specific.
And so do all the other people.
Hey, nut job. Be specific. What did I lie about?
I'm not the nut job.
Yes, you are. You're a nut. Ron, you're a nut job. Ron, you don't have an education.
Don't you? You always call the people names.
Ron, you're a nitwit.
Look, did you ever look in the damn mirror? Look in the mirror and look at your ugly self.
You're right about that, Ron. I'm extremely ugly. I agree.
Radio. You sound ugly on the radio.
Ron, I don't sound ugly.
I'm not sure if that's even possible.
Ron, I don't sound ugly.
That doesn't sound very realistic.
Ron, I am ugly. I don't sound ugly. Get it right.
I can certainly attest to that fact. Ron, I have a question for you.
Oh, boy. You're not going to be able to get a question, JD. You're out of your mind.
Ron, are you a senior citizen yoga instructor? Because I feel like you are.
Mister, I'm a retired union iron worker, bridgeman, and rigger.
Okay, Ron.
433 iron workers.
All right, Ron, give me 30 seconds.
I'm an iron worker, retired iron worker.
Ron, I feel like you meditate at least 4 or 5 times a day.
Just pot him down for a second. I want you to keep Ron on the line if he's capable of listening. Pot him down all the way. Pot him down all the way. I don't know if Ron took his medication. He is right. I'm ugly all day. So I'm really confused what we're arguing about. Hold on. I've said from the beginning of this segment that Michael Brown deserved what he got, that he is a criminal, that he is a felon. I disagree with Elizabeth Warren. I spoke about the strong arm robbery. I said it sets a mindset. I'm confused with what Ron is talking about. He said at the beginning of this call he agreed with me 1,000%. Did he not?
Yeah, I've never seen a 180 in a call like that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna.
Where it started out with I agree with you 1,000%, and then at the end you're an uneducated moron.
So I'm gonna go back to
everybody
Ron.
names and you sound. You don't just look ugly, Brian. You sound unattractive.
Well, he's right about that. I agree. At least to most men, hopefully. But I'm going to bring Ron back on, and I'm going to ask Ron in a very calm fashion. Ron, we see.
We're Americans.
Is he still talking?
Ron, were you screaming the entire time?
All right, Ron,
because I would be thoroughly impressed if that were the case.
We got to let Ron go. What a Looney Tune. My God. Ron, I tried to give you a chance, my friend. You said you agreed with me 1,000%. By the way, I agree with you 1,000% when you said I was ugly. I sound ugly. I have a face for radio, so I agree. All right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. Ron's going to take his medication. We're going to calm down. We're going to take a break, and we're going to continue this conversation on the other side. You are listening to the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN. Oh, yeah. Tuesday morning, the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us. We're monitoring this breaking news, national news. If you're going to Hong Kong today, you might want to tell the pilot to pull a Yui in the air at 10,000 feet because you ain't getting there, folks. Violent protest erupting at the Hong Kong airport. It's shut down the entire airport. And if you're wondering, well, why? What's going on? It has to do with demonstrations in Hong Kong against the Fugitive Offenders and Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters legislation bill. Can you imagine, JD, if this happened in Las Vegas? Like, let's just say hypothetically that people were protesting, I don't know, Donald Trump, and everyone just bombarded McCarran Airport and closed down the airport. I mean, we are living in really weird, strange times right now. I get so annoyed. You know, I was in San Diego over the weekend, and at my hotel, there must have been like 150 workers that were picketing right outside the hotel. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you inconveniencing everybody for your I don't understand that. I never really understood people going on strike. Like, have you ever said as a citizen walking around or in traffic and you saw people picketing and you said to yourself, wow, I'm so happy they're doing that? No, it's an annoyance. There are better ways to go about it. That's happened in Vegas, by the way, with the culinary union and all. We've seen it before.
I've seen signs, or I've seen groups of people in front of Westgate at least 5 or 6 times.
Like, what are you
in the
doing?
Last year
what are you trying to accomplish sitting out there annoying people? I never really understood that. And you know what? That's exactly what they're doing in Hong Kong right now. Only it's a lot worse because it's turned violent. A lot of people are getting hurt. A lot of people are getting arrested. It's not good. I never, for the life of me, I never understood these picketers and these types of protests, because what can happen here? The only thing that can happen is something bad, right? You're going to get hurt. You're going to get arrested. Something bad is going to happen. Not a good idea.
And what's to stop one of those protesters from having a bomb and leaving it there for X amount of time? I mean, there's so many people flooding the airport right now.
God forbid. All right, we got to take a quick break. We're going to be back. Donald Trump going after another CNN anchor. That coming up next. You're listening to the Vegas Take.